A millionaire shelters a little girl sleeping on the street during a snowstorm. He is shocked when she solves a $1,000,000 equation. Just before the story starts, wherever you are on your journey, consider this your sign to keep going. The January wind howled through the skyscrapers of Boston like a hungry wolf. Dr. Harrison Wells pulled his cashmere coat tighter, a futile defense against the biting cold as he left his downtown office at midnight. At 56, the mathematician turned tech billionaire had long made a habit of working late, especially when wrestling with problems others deemed impossible. But tonight was different. The Carrington Prize Committee had given him a deadline. He had 6 months to solve an equation that could revolutionize quantum computing or watch his life's work go to his rival, Dr. Malcolm Reed. Snowflakes swirled around the street lamps as Harrison trudged toward the parking garage. His mind churned with numbers and variables, barely registering his surroundings until a small movement caught his eye. There, between two buildings, huddled a tiny figure wrapped in what appeared to be nothing more than a thin blanket. "Good God," he muttered, approaching cautiously. It was a child, a little girl, no, more than 9 or 10, curled into herself against the brick wall. Her face, what he could see of it, was smeared with dirt but couldn't hide her delicate features or the intelligence in her eyes when they fluttered open at his approach. "Are you all right?" he asked, crouching down despite the snow, soaking through his expensive Italian leather shoes. The girl clutched her blanket tighter. "I'm fine, mister. Just resting." "In a blizzard? Where are your parents?" Harrison looked around, expecting, hoping to see an adult nearby. "Don't have any." Her voice was soft but steady. No tears, just a resignation that pierced Harrison's heart more effectively than sobs would have. The weather report had warned of record-breaking cold. Leaving her here wasn't an option. "I'm Harrison. What's your name?" A hesitation. "Lily." "Lily, you can't stay here tonight. You'll freeze." He gestured to his car. "I have a warm place. Food. You'd be safe." Fear flashed across her face. "I don't go with strangers. A smart girl." Harrison nodded, respecting her caution. "Call someone then." "The police." "Social services. They'll just put me back in the system." Lily's expression hardened. "I ran away for a reason." The snow was falling faster now. Harrison made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "One night, my security staff will be present. You get warm, eat, and tomorrow we'll figure this out. Deal?" Lily studied him, weighing survival against danger with a calculation beyond her years. "Deal," she said finally, extending a small cold hand from beneath her blanket. As Harrison helped her up, he noticed a notebook clutched in her other hand, its pages covered with numbers and symbols that seemed oddly familiar. Neither of them knew it then, but that notebook contained the beginnings of something extraordinary. And as Harrison's car pulled away from the curb carrying them through the storm, the first thread of an unlikely bond began to form, one that would eventually unravel, secrets neither was prepared to face. Harrison's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a glass tower, overlooking the Charles River. As the private elevator ascended, he watched Lily's reflection in the polished doors. She stood perfectly still, her posture suggesting she was ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. "Mrs. Abernathy will be here," Harrison explained, filling the silence. "She's my housekeeper. Been with me for 20 years, Lily just nodded, saying nothing. The doors opened to reveal a spacious foyer where a stern-faced woman in her 60s waited, arm crossed. "Dr. Wells, it's nearly 1 in the morning. I was about to—" Mrs. Abernathy stopped mid-sentence when she spotted Lily. "Oh my, Mrs. Abernathy, this is Lily. She needs a warm meal and a place to stay for the night." To her credit, the housekeeper recovered quickly. "The guest room in the east wing is ready. I'll prepare something to eat." While Mrs. Abernathy led Lily away, Harrison retreated to his study. He knew he should call someone. Child services, the police. But something about the girl's deep-seated fear of the system gave him pause. He would make some calls in the morning. One night wouldn't hurt. 30 minutes later, he found Lily sitting at the kitchen counter, devouring a bowl of soup. Her dirty coat and blanket had been replaced with a set of his pajamas that Mrs. Abernathy had procured from somewhere, comically large but clean. Better? Harrison asked. Lily nodded, her guard still firmly in place. Her notebook sat beside her bowl, one hand resting protectively on it. You like math? He asked, nodding toward it. Something flickered in her eyes, a mix of caution and pride. It makes sense when nothing else does. Harrison understood that sentiment all too well. May I? He gestured to the notebook. After a moment's hesitation, Lily slid it toward him. Harrison flipped it open and felt his breath catch. Page after page was filled with complex equations, not the doodles, or simple arithmetic one might expect from a child her age. These were advanced calculus, theoretical physics concepts that college students struggled with. Did someone teach you this? He asked carefully. I taught myself. From books, she watched him nervously. I go to the library. During the day. They let me stay if I'm quiet. Harrison turned a page and froze. There, in childish handwriting, but with perfect mathematical precision, was a variation of the very equation he'd been working on for the Carrington Prize. Where? Did you see this? His voice came out sharper than he intended. Lily flinched. Nowhere. I made it up. This specific sequence of variables, you just created it? She nodded, reaching for the notebook. It's a puzzle. I like puzzles. Harrison released the notebook, his mind racing. Either this child was copying something she'd seen, perhaps from his own published work, or she was a mathematical prodigy of an extraordinary caliber. Tomorrow, he said carefully, would you be willing to solve some puzzles for me? Different ones? Lily's expression grew suspicious. Why? Because I think you're very special, Lily. And I might be able to help you if you'll let me. As she considered his words, the grandfather clock in the hall chimed too. Neither of them noticed Mrs. Abernathy watching from the doorway, concern etched on her face. So, one day, Lily finally agreed. Then I go. But Harrison, Wells, who had built a billion-dollar empire by recognizing opportunity, knew with absolute certainty that nothing would be the same after tomorrow. The equation that had eluded him for years might have just found its solution in the most unlikely form imaginable. What he couldn't possibly know was how much this encounter would cost him, or that the price would be worth every single penny. Morning light streamed through the penthouse windows as Harrison paced his home office, phone pressed to his ear. Below, a thick blanket of snow covered Boston, closing schools and many businesses for the day. Robert, I need information on missing children, he said to his attorney. Specifically a girl named Lily, around 9 or 10 years old, possibly reported missing within the last year. Harrison, tell me you didn't. She was freezing to death on the street. What was I supposed to do? Call the police? Child services? Not take her home like a stray cat? Harrison glanced through the glass wall of his office. In the adjacent living room, Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, solving a series of mathematical problems he'd printed for her. Mrs. Abernathy hovered nearby, pretending to dust while keeping a watchful eye. Just find out what you can, Robert, and do it discreetly. He ended the call and joined Lily, who didn't look up as he approached. How's it going? These are easy, she murmured, her pencil flying across the paper. Harrison had deliberately given her tests ranging from 6th grade math to undergraduate level calculus. She was now working on the latter, solving differential equations that had stumped his own graduate students. Where did you go to school before? He asked casually. Different places. Her guard remained up. We moved a lot. We? Lily's pencil paused for a fraction of a second. My mom and me. And where is she now? The pencil resumed its movement, pressing harder against the paper. Heaven, according to the lady at time. The shelter. Harrison's heart sank. I'm sorry, Lily. When did that happen? 7 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days ago. The chilling precision in her accounting of grief struck him, harder than tears ever could have. It was cancer. And your father? She shrugged. Never met him. No. Other family? Grandparents, aunts, uncles? None that wanted me. She completed the final equation with a flourish and handed him the papers. Done. Harrison examined her work, his amazement growing with each page. Not only were her answers correct, but her methods were innovative, elegant in their simplicity. Lily, this is extraordinary. You have a remarkable gift. She accepted the compliment with a small nod, as though her abilities were simply facts, like having brown hair or being right-handed. Why were you on the street? Didn't social services place you somewhere? Her expression darkened. Foster homes. 3 of them. The last one? She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. I'm better off on my own. Harrison didn't press, but he made a mental note to have Robert investigate the foster homes as, well, what if, he said carefully, you stayed here for a while, just until we figure things out. Suspicion immediately clouded her features. Why would you want that? It was a fair question. Harrison considered various answers: altruism, responsibility, basic human decency. But he settled on honesty. 2 reasons. First, no child should be homeless, especially in winter. Second, I believe your mathematical ability is extraordinary, and I'd like to help you develop it. So you can make money from me? She asked, her directness startling. No, he replied gently. So you can have options in life. He pointed to her notebook. That equation you were working on, it's part of a very important problem. One I've been trying to solve for years. Interest flickered in her eyes. What kind of problem? The kind that could change how computers work. Make them faster, smarter. For the first time, Lily's expression showed genuine excitement rather than caution. Could I see it? The whole problem, Harrison hesitated. The Carrington equation was proprietary, representing potentially billions in technological advancement. Sharing it with anyone, let alone a child, violated his contracts. But something told him this wasn't just any child. Let me make some calls first, he said. There are legal considerations. Disappointment replaced her enthusiasm. She'd heard adult evasions before. In the meantime, Harrison added, quickly, I have other puzzles. Harder ones. Before she could respond, Mrs. Abernathy appeared in the doorway. Dr. Wells, there's a Miss Chen from Child Protective Services on the phone. She says it's urgent. Lily went rigid, her eyes darting toward the exit. It's all right, Harrison assured her, though uncertainty gnawed at him. We'll figure this out. But as he took the call in his office, watching Lily through the glass, he knew the situation had just become infinitely more complicated. Whatever happened next would require far more than mathematical brilliance to solve. Victoria Chen from Child Protective Services arrived at precisely 2 p.m. She was impeccably dressed despite the snowy conditions, her practical boots the only concession to the weather. At 42, she'd spent 15 years in the system and thought she'd seen every situation involving children at risk. This case, however, was unique. Dr. Wells, she said, accepting his handshake in the penthouse foyer. I appreciate your cooperation in this matter. Harrison nodded stiffly. Ms. Chen, thank you for coming personally. He led her to his study, away from where Lily was working with Mrs. Abernathy on what appeared to be ordinary schoolwork, a hasty arrangement to present a sense of normalcy. Let me be direct, Victoria said once they were seated. Taking in a minor without proper authorization is a serious matter, regardless of your intentions. She was freezing to death, Harrison replied, his voice firm. The temperature dropped to 7 degrees last night. I understand, and calling emergency services would have been the appropriate response. Instead, you brought her to your home. Harrison leaned forward. Ms. Chen, have you reviewed Lily's file? The foster home she ran away from? Victoria's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. I have. There are concerning elements in her placement history. Abuse? I can't discuss specifics, but her last placement has been flagged for investigation. She clasped her ends. That said, I am still required to ensure her proper placement now. And where would that be? Another home that will be under investigation after she's discovered missing. Victoria sighed. Dr. Wells, I understand your concern, but there are protocols. I want to apply for emergency foster placement. Harrison interrupted. My attorney is preparing the paperwork as we speak. Surprise registered on Victoria's face. You, a single man with no childcare experience or known family connections, wants to foster a 9-year-old girl you met yesterday? 10. Harrison corrected automatically. She's 10. Born April 17th, 2015, according to the records my attorney Robert obtained. Victoria studied him. May I ask why your public background suggests you're hardly the nurturing type? It was a fair assessment. Harrison Wells, the brilliant mathematician and ruthless businessman, had never shown an interest in children. His reputation was built on intellectual prowess and technological innovation, not compassion. She's a mathematical prodigy, he said finally. Possibly one of the greatest minds of her generation. Victoria's expression hardened. So this is about her abilities, not her welfare. Both, Harrison insisted. I have the resources to provide for all her needs, educational, emotional, and physical. She'd have stability and safety, and you would have access to her intellectual gifts, Victoria finished for him. Harrison couldn't deny it entirely. Would that be so terrible? A mutually beneficial arrangement? Victoria rose and moved to the window overlooking the snow-covered city. I need to speak with Lily. Alone. Harrison nodded, knowing this was standard procedure. Of course. When they entered the living room, Lily looked up from her workbook, eyes immediately assessing Victoria with the weariness of a child who had learned to read adults quickly. Hello, Lily, Victoria said, her voice gentler than it had been with Harrison. I'm Ms. Chen. Could we talk for a few minutes? Lily glanced at Harrison, who nodded encouragingly. We'll be in the kitchen, he said, guiding Mrs. Abernathy away to give them privacy. 20 minutes later, Victoria found them there, her expression unreadable. Well, Harrison asked, unable to hide his anxiety. Lily, Victoria chose her words carefully, remarkable, and remarkably adamant about staying here. Relief flooded through him. So, temporary emergency placement is possible, given the circumstances. But there are conditions. Home, studies, background checks, parenting classes, whatever it takes. Victoria's professional veneer cracked slightly. Dr. Wells, are you certain about this? Children, especially those with trauma histories, require consistency and emotional support. I'm not known for starting things. I can't finish, Ms. Chen. She nodded slowly. I'll file the preliminary paperwork today, but I will be monitoring the situation very closely. As Victoria prepared to leave, Lily appeared in the doorway, her expression guarded yet hopeful. You can stay for now, Victoria told her. I'll be checking in regularly. After the social worker departed, Lily turned to Harrison, studying him with those penetrating eyes. You want me to solve your equation, she stated, not as a question but as a fact. Harrison considered denying it, then thought better of it. Yes, but that's not the only reason I want you to stay. What's the other reason? Harrison found himself at a rare loss for words. How could he explain that in less than 24 hours? This child had awakened something long dormant within him, a sense of purpose. Beyond ambition, a connection he hadn't realized he was missing. Let's just say, he answered carefully, we might be good for each other. Lily seemed to accept this, offering a tentative smile that transformed her solemn face. For the first time, Harrison glimpsed the child beneath the survivor. Can I see the real problem now? She asked. The important one. Harrison checked his watch. It was time to make a decision that would either be the biggest mistake of his career or its defining moment. Yes, he said, a smile touching his own lips. I think you're ready. Malcolm Reed's corner office at Nexus Technologies offered a panoramic view of the San Francisco Bay, though he rarely noticed the scenery. At 58, Reed had built his reputation on turning theoretical mathematics into practical technology and on never accepting second place. Today, his attention was fixed on the computer screen before him, where an email from a former colleague at MIT displayed an interesting bit of gossip. Harrison Wells had taken in a homeless child. Curious, Reed murmured, leaning back in his ergonomic chair. Very curious. Indeed. His assistant appeared in the doorway. Your 3 Alkas here, Dr. Reed. Send him in. A nervous-looking young man entered, clutching a tablet computer. Reed, I've analyzed the latest data from Boston as you requested. And Dr. Wells's energy consumption at his research facility has spiked by 40% in the past week. He's running massive computational simulations. Reed's eyes narrowed. The Carrington Prize deadline was still 5 months away. Wells shouldn't have made a breakthrough this fast. Not unless he had help. What about this child he's taken in? What do we know? The assistant swiped through his notes. Lily Parker, age 10. Mother deceased 7 months ago. Breast cancer. Father unknown. No other family. She was in foster care until approximately 3 months ago when she ran away. No police reports were filed on her disappearance until recently. Educational background is spotty. She moved frequently with her mother, who was a waitress. However, school records indicate advanced placement in mathematics at every school, despite irregular attendance. Reed drummed his fingers on his desk. Advanced? How? Off the charts, sir. One teacher noted she completed an entire year's curriculum in 3 weeks before they moved again. Suspicion began to form in Reed's mind. Find that teacher. I want to know exactly what this child is capable of. Sir, she's just a little girl who? Harrison Wells, one of the most self-serving men I've ever known, has suddenly taken a paternal interest in. Reed cut him off, fixing his assistant with a stern look. Wells doesn't have an altruistic bone in his body. If he's keeping this child close, there's a reason. Find it. As his assistant hurried away, Reed turned back to the window, finally noticing the fog rolling in across the bay. Like that fog, a new strategy was taking shape in his mind. If Harrison Wells had found his own goodwill hunting, Malcolm Reed needed to know exactly what he was up against and how to neutralize this unexpected advantage. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, Harrison watched in astonishment as Lily filled a digital whiteboard with equations, her small hand moving with confident precision across the screen. For 3 days, she had studied the Carrington equation, asking questions that stunned him with their insight. Now she was attempting an approach that had never occurred to him. A lateral solution that bypassed the computational barriers he'd been fighting for months. The problem, Lily explained, her voice taking on a teacher's tone that amused Harrison, is that you're trying to solve it all at once. But if you break it into these components and solve them simultaneously. She tapped the board, highlighting 3 sections of the equation. It's like a combination lock. You don't try every possible combination. You listen for the tumblers to fall into place one at a time. Harrison stared at her work, recognition dawning. You're treating it as a multidimensional problem. Lily nodded. Because it is. See? She drew connecting lines between variables. These relate to each other across dimensions. They're like echoes. It was brilliant. Unorthodox, but potentially revolutionary if it worked. We need to run simulations, he said, excitement building. This could take weeks to verify. Or we could use quantum processing to run parallel simulations, Lily suggested casually. That would be faster, Harrison laughed. Yes, it would. Unfortunately, true quantum computing doesn't exist yet. That's partly what this equation is. Trying to solve how to create stable quantum bits. Lily frowned, considering this obstacle. What about using the classical approximation method with neural network optimization? Harrison stared at her. The approach she was suggesting was cutting edge, something only recently theorized in academic circles. Where did you learn about Neural network optimization? She shrugged. I read a paper about it. At the library. The man at the desk lets me use the computers if I help him organize. The returns. Before Harrison could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Call. Immediately. Problem with the foster. Application. Harrison excused himself to his office, his concern mounting. When Robert answered, his voice was grave. Malcolm Reed is making inquiries about Lily. Harrison felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter weather. How do you know? One of my associates clerked for a judge who handles family court cases. Reed's legal team has requested information about Lily's placement status. He can't do that. Those records are sealed. Technically, yes. But Reed has political connections, and he's claiming a personal interest as a potential foster parent himself. Harrison gripped the phone tighter. That's absurd. He's never even met her. Doesn't matter. He's wealthy, respected, and has a wife, making him on paper a more suitable placement than a single workaholic like yourself. Harrison gazed through the glass wall to where Lily continued working, completely absorbed in the puzzle before her. In just a few days, she'd become indispensable, not just to his work, but to his life in a way he couldn't fully articulate. Robert, do whatever it takes. Reed is not getting anywhere near her. What aren't you telling me? Harrison? What's so special about this girl? Harrison watched as Lily solved in minutes what had stumped him for months. Everything, he answered, his voice low. She's special in every single way. 1 month after the snowstorm that brought them together, Harrison and Lily had settled into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings were for Lily's education, a blend of online courses and tutors who came to the penthouse, all of them astonished by her abilities. Afternoons were devoted to the puzzle, as Lily called the Carrington equation, and evenings were for what Harrison awkwardly termed normal kid stuff, movies, games, and conversations that had nothing to do with mathematics. Today, however, the routine was interrupted by Victoria Chen's monthly visit, coinciding with troubling news from Robert about Malcolm Reed's persistent interest in Lily. He scheduled a hearing, Robert had explained, earlier, challenging your foster placement on the grounds of educational neglect. That's ridiculous, Harrison had fumed. Lily has the best tutors in Boston, but no formal school? Enrollment. Reed's lawyers are arguing she needs proper socialization and structure. Now Harrison paced the living room while Victoria interviewed Lily in the study, trying to formulate a strategy that would keep Reed at bay without revealing the true nature of their work together. When Victoria emerged, her expression was thoughtful. She's thriving here, she acknowledged. Physically, emotionally, her test scores are exceptional. But, Harrison prompted, sensing hesitation. But children need peers, Dr. Wells. Social development is as important as academic progress. She's not ready for that yet. Victoria's gaze sharpened. Or are you not ready to share her? Before Harrison could respond, Lily appeared behind Victoria. I heard you talking about school, she said. I'd like to try it. Harrison blinked in surprise. You would? Lily nodded. Not all the time. Maybe 3 days a week? I can still work on our puzzle all the other days. That sounds reasonable, Victoria said, giving Harrison a meaningful look. And it would address certain legal concerns that have been raised. Harrison understood the implicit warning. Reed was looking for any vulnerability, any reason to challenge Lily's placement. If that's what you want, he told Lily, we'll make it happen. After Victoria departed with promises to help facilitate part-time enrollment at a private school. Known for accommodating gifted children, Harrison sat with Lily in his study. Are you sure about this? School can be challenging, especially for someone with your abilities. Lily's expression grew serious. I need to learn how to be around other kids if I'm going to stay with you. That's what Ms. Chen said. Is that what you want, to stay? Harrison asked carefully. They hadn't discussed permanence before. The emergency foster placement was temporary by definition, renewable, but always precarious. Lily studied her hands. My mom used to say, home isn't a place. It's where people understand you. She looked up at him. You understand me. Something tightened in Harrison's chest. And I'm trying to understand you, she continued. You need to win this prize. It's important. It was, Harrison admitted. Now I'm not so sure. What's most important? A small smile touched Lily's lips. We can do both. I'll go to school, make friends, be normal, and we'll solve the puzzle together. Harrison marveled at her resilience, her ability to adapt to yet another new reality. Deal, he said, extending his hand, as he had that first night. As they shook on it, Harrison's phone rang. It was Robert again. Malcolm Reed just arrived in Boston. Attorney reported without preamble, and he's requested a meeting with you tomorrow. Harrison felt a surge of protective anger. Absolutely not. Harrison, listen to me. He's bringing the commissioner of child services. If you refuse, it looks suspicious. What does he want? Officially, to discuss a potential collaboration on the Carrington project. Unofficially, he wants to assess Lily, Harrison finished grimly. Most likely. But refusing gives him ammunition. Harrison glanced at Lily, who was watching him intently, picking up on his tension. Fine. Tomorrow. My office downtown, not here. After ending the call, he explained the situation to Lily as straightforwardly as possible. She deserved honesty. This man, Dr. Reed, is my competitor. He thinks I'm using your mathematical abilities to gain an advantage. Aren't you, Lily? Asked not accusingly, but with genuine curiosity. Harrison considered his answer carefully. When I first realized what you could do? Yes, that was my primary interest. And now? Now I'm more concerned with what's best for you than winning some prize. Lily absorbed this. Is Dr. Reed a bad person? Not bad exactly. Ambitious. Determined. Harrison chose his words deliberately. Someone who sees people as a means to an end. Like you used to, Lily observed, with uncomfortable accuracy. Harrison nodded, acknowledging the truth. Like I used to. What happens if he convinces people to take me away from you? The question hung in the air, heavy, with implications neither wanted to face. Harrison had no legal claim on Lily, beyond the temporary arrangement Victoria had facilitated. If a judge deemed another placement more appropriate, he would be powerless. I won't let that happen, Harrison promised, though uncertainty gnawed at him. Lily's expression turned resolute. Neither will I. As evening fell, bringing another snowstorm that blanketed Boston in white, Harrison watched Lily fall asleep on the couch during a movie about dolphins that she'd selected. For the first time in his adult life, Harrison Wells felt genuine fear, not for himself nor for his work, but for this child who had somehow become the center of his world in a matter of weeks. Tomorrow he would face Malcolm Reed across a conference table, both men armed with agendas hidden beneath cordial smiles. The stakes were no longer measured in prizes or patents, but in the future of the remarkable child, sleeping peacefully beside him, a future that suddenly seemed far from certain. Harrison arrived at his downtown office an hour early, reviewing strategy with Robert while security conducted a final sweep of the conference room. Snow still clung to the window sills from the previous day's storm, the sky a crisp, clear blue that belied the tension within. Remember, Robert cautioned, this is ostensibly about collaboration. Be cordial but non-committal. Harrison nodded, adjusting his tie. And if he mentions Lily, deflect. Her placement is a private matter, not a business discussion. At precisely 10 a.m., Malcolm Reed strode into the reception area, followed by a woman Harrison recognized as Commissioner Elena Blackwood of Massachusetts Child Services, a political appointee with connections to the governor. Harrison! Reed's voice boomed with false joviality as they shook hands. At 58, he remained imposingly fit, his silver hair and tailored suit projecting authority. It's been, what, 2 years? The Singapore conference? Something like that, Harrison replied coolly. Commissioner Blackwood extended her hand. Dr. Wells, thank you for accommodating us on such short notice. They settled in the conference room pleasantries, exchanged with the precision of chess moves. Harrison noted how Reed's eyes swept the office, assessing, calculating. "I'll be direct," Reed said finally. "The Carrington Prize Committee is concerned about potential irregularities in our respective approaches." Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Irregularities? Rumors suggest you've made unexpected progress, quite suddenly." "My work has always been methodical, Malcolm. Breakthroughs often appear sudden to outside observers." Reed smiled thinly. "Indeed. Speaking of outside observers, I understand you've taken in a foster child." He paused for effect. "A mathematician like yourself," and there it was. "The real purpose of this meeting. My personal life isn't relevant to the Carrington Prize," Harrison replied evenly. Commissioner Blackwood cleared her throat. "Actually, Dr. Wells, when a child under state supervision is involved, there are oversight considerations. My foster arrangement with Lily has been approved through the proper channels." "Yes," she acknowledged, "as an emergency placement. But long-term care requires a more rigorous evaluation, especially given certain allegations." Harrison stiffened. "What allegations?" Reed interjected smoothly. "Merely concerns about whether your home environment prioritizes the child's well-being or your research interests. The commissioner and I were just discussing how a more established family setting might better serve her needs." "Such as yours?" Harrison couldn't keep the sharp edge from his voice. Reed spread his hands innocently. "Catherine and I have discussed fostering for years. We have a stable marriage, a lovely home in San Francisco with excellent schools nearby." The implication was clear. A single man consumed by his work versus a married couple with a picture-perfect setting. On paper, Reed would win that comparison every time. "Lily is thriving in my care," Harrison stated firmly. "She's enrolling in school next week, has regular check-ins with her social worker, and shows every sign of positive adjustment." Commissioner Blackwood made a note. "We'd still like to schedule an independent evaluation. Protocol, you understand." Before Harrison could object, his phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Abernathy. "Emergency at school. Lily involved." "Come now," Harrison stood abruptly. "I apologize, but I need to cut this short. A situation requires my immediate attention." Reed's expression betrayed a flash of triumph, as though Harrison's departure confirmed his unsuitability. "Family emergency?" he asked with feigned innocence. "Exactly that," Harrison replied, gathering his things. "Robert will see you out." 20 minutes later, Harrison rushed into Westridge Academy, the private school where Lily had started part-time attendance just 3 days earlier. The headmistress, Dr. Sarah Winters, met him in the hallway. "Dr. Wells, thank you for coming so quickly." "What happened? Is Lily hurt?" "No, nothing like that, Doctor." Winters led him to her office where Lily sat, physically unharmed but with red-rimmed eyes. There was an incident in mathematics class. Lily looked up as Harrison entered, her expression a mixture of defiance and fear. "I didn't do anything wrong," she stated, immediately. Dr. Winters sighed. Lily corrected her teacher, Mr. Phillips, on a calculus problem. When he insisted his solution was correct, she rather publicly demonstrated otherwise. She was right, wasn't she? Harrison guessed. Yes, but her approach, calling his method embarrassingly primitive in front of the class, was inappropriate. Harrison suppressed a smile. "I understand. We'll discuss proper classroom etiquette." After a brief private conversation with Lily, Harrison escorted her to the car where she finally spoke freely. "He was teaching them wrong," she insisted. "What was I supposed to do?" "Perhaps find a less confrontational approach," Harrison suggested gently. "Knowledge without tact can come across as arrogance." Lily considered this. "Like when you argue with Dr. Peterson about quantum theory?" Harrison winced, recalling his own heated exchanges with colleagues. "Not my finest moments. So we both need to work on it," Lily concluded with unexpected maturity. As they drove home, Harrison debated whether to tell her about the meeting with Reed. Transparency had been their unspoken agreement from the beginning. "There's something you should know," he began. "Dr. Reed came to my office today with someone from Child Services, Lily, tensed beside him. What did they want? To evaluate our situation. Reed is suggesting he might be a more suitable foster parent. Silence filled the car as Lily processed this information. Finally, she asked, "Can he do that? Just take me away?" "Not easily. And not if we don't let him," Harrison assured her, though the uncertainty was a knot in his stomach. "But we need to be prepared. There will be evaluations, possibly, even court hearings, because of the equation or because of me." The question cut to the heart of the matter. "Both," Harrison admitted. "Reed wants to win the Carrington Prize, and he suspects you're helping me. But there's more to it. A competition between us that goes back decades." Lily stared out the window at the passing cityscape. "I had a dream last night," she said, suddenly, "about my mom. She was trying to tell me something important, but I couldn't hear her." She turned to Harrison. "Do you think dreams mean anything?" The abrupt change of subject caught him off guard. Some people believe they do. Mom used to say dreams are our subconscious working on problems we can't solve when we're awake. Lily's voice grew softer. "I think my brain is trying to remember something important about her. Something that might help us now." Harrison glanced at her, this extraordinary child who continually surprised him with her depth. "If you remember, you'll tell me." She nodded, then added with quiet determination, "I'm not going with Dr. Reed. Whatever happens, I'm staying with you." As they pulled into the garage beneath Harrison's building, neither noticed the black sedan parked across the street, its driver photographing their arrival. With a telephoto lens, the game Malcolm Reed was playing had only just begun, and he had resources Harrison couldn't begin to imagine, including information about Lily's mother that would change everything. The Carrington Foundation's annual gala transformed the Boston Museum of Science into a glittering showcase of wealth and intellectual prowess. Harrison rarely attended such events, preferring the solitude of his lab, but tonight's appearance was strategic, a public statement that nothing was amiss in his research or his life. "Smile," Robert murmured as they navigated the crowd. "You look like you're planning a murder." "Merely contemplating one," Harrison replied, nodding politely to a passing board member. 2 weeks had passed since Reed's visit, weeks filled with evaluations, interviews, and mounting pressure. Commissioner Blackwood had assigned a special investigator to Lily's case, someone with clear ties to Reed's foundation. Meanwhile, the court date for a formal placement hearing loomed, just 1 month away. "Harrison, Wells," a booming voice cut through his thoughts. Theodore Carrington himself approached, a glass of champagne in hand. At 74, the tech billionaire remained imposing, his reputation for ruthlessness matched only by his philanthropy. "Where's this mathematical prodigy I've been hearing about? The one living under your roof?" Harrison tensed. News of Lily had spread faster than he'd anticipated. "My foster daughter is at home, Mr. Carrington. She's 10 years old, hardly gala material." Carrington chuckled. "Shame. I'd have enjoyed meeting the child. Who's got Malcolm Reed in such a state?" He leaned closer. "He's been bending my ear about improprieties in your research." Approach suggesting outside assistance. "Has he now?" Harrison kept his tone neutral despite his rising anger. "Indeed," Carrington studied him shrewdly. "Is there any merit to his concerns, Harrison?" Before he could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Malcolm Reed had arrived with his wife, Catherine, a respected pediatric surgeon whose charitable work with children made her universally admired. The perfect foster mother by all appearances. "Speak of the devil," Carrington muttered. "Excuse me, Harrison. Duty calls." Left alone, Harrison retreated to a quieter corner, checking his phone. Mrs. Abernathy had sent a photo of Lily sound asleep, surrounded by books and papers, evidence of another late-night work session on the puzzle. A text followed. She insisted on waiting up for you. Finally crashed at 9:30, something warm and unfamiliar expanded in Harrison's chest at the image. Whatever the outcome of the legal battles ahead these months with Lily had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. Quite the domestic transformation, a soft voice observed. Catherine Reed stood before him, elegant in a navy blue gown. Malcolm says you've become quite the devoted father figure. Harrison pocketed his phone. Catherine, it's lovely to see you, is it? Her smile held a genuine warmth, unlike her husband's calculated charm. We've hardly spoken since, well, for a long time. Few people remembered that Catherine had been engaged to Harrison briefly in their 20s, before Malcolm had entered the picture. It was ancient history now, but it added another layer to the complex rivalry between the men. How is she? Catherine asked quietly. The little girl. Lily, isn't it? She's remarkable, Harrison answered. Honestly, brilliant, resilient, and occasionally infuriating. Catherine laughed, a genuine sound. Sounds like parenting. I wouldn't know. This is all new territory for me. Her expression softened. Malcolm believes you're exploiting her. Abilities for the Carrington prize. And you? What do you believe? Catherine hesitated. I believe children change people, Harrison. Sometimes for the better. She glanced across the room to where her husband was holding court. I should go. But Harrison, whatever happens with the hearing, please know this isn't personal for me. As she walked away, Harrison wondered if she knew more than she was letting on. The Reeds had been unable to have children of their own, a private sorrow that had reportedly contributed to the strain in their marriage. Was Catherine's interest in fostering Lily genuine or just another move in Malcolm's elaborate game? Across town, Lily sat bolt upright in bed, awakened by a dream so vivid it left her gasping. She fumbled for the notebook she kept beside her pillow, scribbling frantically before the detail faded. Her mother's voice clear for the first time in months. Find the letter, Lily. The one I hid in your star book. He mustn't know. The star book. Her mother's worn copy of Constellations for Young Astronomers, one of the few possessions Lily had managed to keep during her time in foster care. She hadn't opened it since her mother's death. The memories, too. Painful. Now she rushed to her bookshelf, pulling down the tattered volume. As she flipped through its pages, a sealed envelope fell out, hidden in the center, spread about the Cassiopeia constellation, her mother's favorite. With trembling fingers, Lily opened it, unfolding a letter written in her mother's distinctive handwriting. As she read, her eyes widened with shock and a sudden, terrible understanding. Dr. Wells, she whispered urgently to the empty room, even though she knew he was miles away at the gala. You need to see this. Meanwhile, at the museum, Harrison found himself cornered by Malcolm Reed near the displays of historic calculating machines. A fitting backdrop for our conversation, Reed observed. The evolution of computation from mechanical to quantum, the very problem we're both trying to solve. What do you want? Malcolm? Reed's smile never reached his eyes. To give you an opportunity to withdraw from the Carrington competition gracefully, with your reputation intact. Harrison stared at him, incredulously. On what grounds? Academic integrity. Using an undisclosed collaborator, particularly one who is a minor, under your guardianship violates the terms of entry. You have no proof of any impropriety. Not yet. Reed swirled his drink. But the hearing next month will require full disclosure of your household, activities, your research methods, the nature of your relationship with the girl. He leaned closer. Do you really want Lily subjected to that kind of scrutiny? The stress of testifying, the public exposure? The threat was clear. Reed would use the hearing to force revelations about Lily's work, potentially invalidating Carrington's submission, while simultaneously arguing that Harrison's home wasn't in her best interest. You would use a child as leverage in a professional rivalry, Harrison said, disgust evident in his voice. Have you no shame? This isn't about shame, Harrison. It's about winning. Reed placed his empty glass on a nearby table. Consider my offer. Withdraw from the competition and I'll drop my petition for foster placement. Lily stays with you untroubled by further legal proceedings. Before Harrison could respond, his phone vibrated with an urgent call from Mrs. Abernathy. I'm sorry to disturb you, Dr. Wells, but Lily insists it's an emergency. Something about her mother and a letter. Harrison's heart raced as he excused himself from Reed, moving to a private alcove to take Lily's call. Her voice came through breathless and excited. I found it. A letter from my mom. You won't believe what it says about Dr. Reed. As Harrison listened to Lily's revelation, the pieces of a puzzle far more personal than the Carrington equation began to fall into place. A puzzle that had begun long before a snowstorm brought a brilliant child to his doorstep. She worked for him. Harrison stared at the letter spread on his desk, the dawn light barely illuminating the penthouse study. He'd returned from the gala to find Lily waiting, clutching the weathered pages like a lifeline. Lily nodded, her eyes red from a whole night without sleep. For 3 years. At Nexus Technologies. Before I was born, the letter, dated just weeks before Elena Parker's death, was both a confession and a warning. In careful script, she explained how she'd worked as a research assistant in Malcolm Reed's lab from 2013 to 2016, contributing to early quantum computing research without receiving credit. I never told you about this part of my life, Elena had written to her daughter, because I was ashamed of my silence. Dr. Reed used my work in his publications, promising recognition. That never came. When I finally threatened to expose him, he ensured I would never work in research again. Harrison read. Further, his suspicion growing with each paragraph. She left just before you were born. Keep reading, Lily urged, her voice tight with emotion. The next section confirmed what Harrison had already begun to suspect. Elena had discovered she was pregnant shortly before her confrontation with Reed. She'd never told him about the pregnancy, fearing he would use his child, as another means of control. Malcolm Reed is your father, Harrison said quietly, the words hanging in the silent room. Lily wrapped her arms around herself. A father who never knew I existed, and now he wants to take me away from you without even knowing who I am. The irony was staggering. Reed had been pursuing custody of Lily purely as leverage against Harrison, unaware he was fighting for his own biological daughter. Does this change things? Lily asked, vulnerability evident in her voice. Do you still want me to stay? The question pierced Harrison's heart. Of course I do. This changes nothing between us. Relief flooded her features, followed quickly by determination. Then we can use this to make him back off. Harrison considered the ethical implications. Lily, this is complicated. Reed has a legal right to know he has a daughter, a right he lost when he drove my mother away, Lily countered with a fierceness that reminded Harrison of Elena's words about standing up for herself too late. Mom kept this secret for a reason. Even so, using this information as leverage, like he's using me against you, Lily challenged. He gave you a choice at the gala. Now we have a way to fight back. Harrison marveled at her strategic thinking, feeling equal parts proud and concerned. We need to be careful. If we reveal this, it changes everything, legally and personally. Lily's expression softened. I know. But first, I want to finish our work. The equation. If we solve it before the hearing, you'll win the prize fairly, and he can't claim. You used me improperly, Harrison. Check the time. It was nearly 6 a.m. They'd been working around the clock for weeks, Lily's unconventional approach yielding promising results. The simulations were running continuously on Harrison's supercomputers at the research facility. Let's check the latest results, he suggested, moving to his computer. As the data loaded, Lily leaned against his chair, her small frame radiating a mixture of exhaustion and determination. The screen filled with graphs and numbers, a computational symphony that only a few people in the world could truly understand. There, Lily pointed, her finger landing on an anomaly in the pattern. The quantum state is holding longer than in your previous attempts. Harrison enlarged the section, excitement building. 37 microseconds. That's nearly triple our last result. But it's still not stable. Enough, Lily frowned. We're missing something. They spent the next few hours lost in the problem. The revelation about Reed temporarily set aside in favor of the puzzle that had brought them together. Mrs. Abernathy brought them breakfast, then lunch, both largely ignored as equations filled. Whiteboards and simulations ran and rearing with minute adjustments. Around mid-afternoon, Victoria Chen arrived for her scheduled visit, finding them deep in discussion about quantum decoherence rates. This looks intense, she observed, surveying the controlled chaos of papers and digital displays. Harrison started, having completely forgotten the appointment. Ms. Chen, we were just working on advanced quantum physics, she finished dryly, as one does with a 10-year-old. Lily straightened, meeting Victoria's gaze directly. It's what I'm good at. It's what I love doing. Victoria's expression softened. I can see that. And how is school going? Better, Lily admitted. I've been trying to be less corrective with the teachers. Harrison suppressed a smile. After the initial incident, Lily had made a genuine effort to adapt, even making a tentative friendship with a girl named Zoe who shared her interest in astronomy, if not her mathematical abilities. Victoria spoke with Lily privately, then conducted her usual inspection of the living arrangements before rejoining Harrison in his study. The hearing is in 3 weeks, she reminded him. Commissioner Blackwood has assigned Judge Monroe to the case. Harrison grimaced. Reed's former college roommate. How convenient. The system isn't perfect, Victoria acknowledged. But your placement history with Lily is excellent. The school reports improvement, her social integration. You have a strong case. And yet, Harrison sensed a reservation. And yet, Reed is presenting himself and his wife as a traditional family unit with significant resources and a home outside the city. In conventional foster placements, that often takes precedence over a single guardian, however suitable. After she left, Harrison found Lily staring at her mother's letter. Again, a plan clearly forming. Behind her focused eyes, we need to talk to Catherine Reed, she announced suddenly. Harrison blinked in surprise. Reed's wife? Why? Because she's the only one who might believe us. Without proof, Lily explained. And because she might be the only person Malcolm Reed actually listens to. Before Harrison could respond, his computer chimed with an alert from the research facility. The latest simulation had completed with unexpected results. Look at this, he murmured, studying the data. The quantum states. They're aligning in a pattern I've never seen before. Lily moved to his side, her eyes widening as she absorbed the information. It's working. My approach, it's working. For the first time since they'd begun, Harrison allowed himself to believe they might actually solve the equation before the hearing and before Reed could interfere further. What he couldn't know was that at that very moment, Malcolm Reed was reviewing security footage from the museum gala, zooming in on Harrison's phone as he checked Mrs. Abernathy's message. The photo of Lily was visible. On the papers surrounding her were equations identical to those in Reed's own research. Got you, Reed murmured, reaching for his phone to call Commissioner Blackwood with evidence of what he would characterize as Harrison's exploitation of a vulnerable child. The battle for Lily and for the breakthrough that would define the future of computing was about to reach its climax with consequences neither man could fully anticipate. The emergency hearing was scheduled for April 15th, 2 days before Lily's 11th birthday and 3 weeks before the Carrington Prize submission deadline. Reed's legal team had presented their evidence of educational exploitation to Commissioner Blackwood, who expedited the process over Victoria Chen's objections. Now Harrison sat in his attorney's office reviewing strategy while Lily waited outside with Mrs. Abernathy, her face solemn but composed. They're moving to suspend your foster care. Authorization pending. investigation, Robert explained. If successful, Lily would be placed in temporary care with the Reeds, not immediately. Standard procedure would place her in emergency foster care first. Harrison rubbed his temples. That's unacceptable. She's already experienced enough disruption. Robert hesitated. Harrison, about the evidence Reed presented. These equations from your research. Did Lily work on them? She did, more than work on them. Some of the core approaches were entirely her idea. That complicates our position. The commissioner is framing this as child labor exploitation. Harrison's frustration mounted. It wasn't exploitation, it was collaboration. Lily loves mathematics. It's part of who she is. 10-year-old collaborating on million-dollar research, Robert shook his head. The optics are problematic. Before Harrison could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Need to speak with you privately. Urgent. About Lily and Malcolm. Catherine. Reed. Harrison stared at the message in surprise. Since their brief conversation at the gala, Catherine had made no attempt to contact him. I need to take care of something, he told. Robert, keep working on our defense. And Robert, find out everything you can about an Elena Parker's employment history, specifically at Nexus Technologies between 2013 and 2016. In the reception area, Harrison found Lily reading a physics journal, her ability to focus amid chaos remaining remarkable. I need to step out. Briefly, he told her. Will you be all right with Mrs. Abernathy? Lily studied his face, reading his tension. It's about the letter, isn't it? You're going to tell someone. Her perceptiveness still caught him off guard. Not exactly. But I need to explore all our options to keep you with me. She nodded solemnly. I trust you. The simple statement carried a weight that Harrison felt acutely as he made his way to the small cafe where Catherine had suggested they meet. He found her waiting at a corner table, sunglasses hiding her eye. Despite the overcast day, thank you for coming, she said as he sat down. I don't have much time before Malcolm notices my absence. Why the secrecy? Catherine removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes reddened from crying. Because I discovered something yesterday that changes everything. About Lily. About Elena Parker? Harrison's pulse quickened. What do you know about Elena? That she worked in Malcolm's lab over a decade ago. That she left suddenly, filing a harassment complaint that was settled out of court and sealed. Catherine's hands trembled slightly, and that 9 months after her departure, she gave birth to a daughter. How did you find this? Malcolm keeps extensive records. When he became fixated on challenging your foster arrangement, I grew suspicious of his motivations. I started looking into Lily's background. She paused. The timing was too coincidental to ignore. Harrison studied her carefully. Have you confronted Malcolm with your suspicions? No! He doesn't know I've made the connection. Catherine's voice dropped lower. Harrison, I need to know. Is Malcolm Lily's biological father? The directness of the question demanded equal honesty. Elena's letter to Lily states that he is. We haven't done any DNA testing to confirm. Catherine closed her eyes, briefly absorbing the confirmation of her deepest suspicions. Malcolm and we tried for years to have children. The irony that he's fighting for custody of a child he doesn't even know is his own. She shook her head. But that's not why I contacted you. There's more. She reached into her purse and withdrew a USB drive. After Elena left, Malcolm purged most records of her contributions to the research. But I found these in archived server backups. Elena's original work, including theoretical approaches to quantum stability that Malcolm has been building on for years without credit. Harrison accepted the drive, understanding its immense significance. Why are you giving me this? Catherine's expression hardened. Because I've spent 20 years with a man whose ambition has overshadowed his integrity too many times. Because Lily deserves to know her mother's work was valuable and stolen. And because, she hesitated, because I've seen how You look at that child, not as a tool or an asset, but as a daughter. A lump formed in Harrison's throat. He hadn't fully articulated those feelings even to himself. "What will you do now?" he asked. "I don't know," Catherine admitted. "Malcolm believes we're pursuing Lily's custody to pressure you professionally. He doesn't realize he's fighting for his own child." She gathered her belongings. "The hearing is tomorrow. I'll be there, but I can't predict what I'll do." As she stood to leave, Harrison asked one final question. "If you had known about Lily years ago, would you have raised her as your own?" Catherine's expression softened, with an old pain, in a heartbeat. "But Malcolm, he never wanted a child for the right reasons." She touched Harrison's hand briefly. "Don't let him know we've spoken." Not yet. After she departed, Harrison returned to find Robert and Lily deep in conversation about chess strategy, the girl demonstrating a complex endgame on Robert's phone app. "Harrison," Robert waved him over. "Did you know Lily's rated 2100 in online chess? That's expert level." "I'm not surprised," Harrison replied, his mind still processing his conversation with Catherine. "Lily excels at anything involving pattern recognition and strategic thinking." Lily studied him intently. "Did you meet with her? Dr. Reed's wife?" Harrison nodded, deciding honesty remained their best policy. "She's discovered the connection between you and Malcolm, and she's provided evidence of your mother's original research." Lily's eyes widened. "My mom's work? She kept it?" "Backups from old servers. We'll review it together later." Harrison turned to Robert. "This potentially changes our approach. Tomorrow, if Elena's work forms the foundation of Reed's current research, then his accusations of impropriety become hypocritical at best," Robert finished, understanding immediately. "But Harrison using this information means revealing Lily's paternity in open court. Are you prepared for those consequences?" All eyes turned to Lily, who sat straighter in her chair, her chin raised in a gesture that reminded Harrison painfully of her mother's letter, a woman who had found her voice too late. "I want to testify," she announced. "I want to tell the judge myself why I want to stay with you." "Lily, you don't have to do that." "Yes, I do," she interrupted with quiet determination. "Mom kept secrets to protect me, and it didn't work. I'm done hiding." As they prepared to leave, Harrison's phone chimed with a notification from his research lab. The latest simulations based on Lily's approach had achieved quantum stability for a full second, shattering all previous records. The breakthrough they'd been working toward had arrived, perfectly timed for tomorrow's confrontation. Yet somehow the scientific achievement felt secondary to the deeply personal battle they now faced. A battle that would determine not just a scientific legacy, but the future of the extraordinary child who had become the center of Harrison's world. What none of them realized was that Malcolm Reed had his own surprise, prepared for the hearing, one that would force everyone to confront painful truths and make impossible choices before the day was through. Judge Monroe's private chambers were chosen for the emergency hearing to protect Lily's privacy, though Harrison suspected Reed's influence had secured the less public venue. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, with a reputation for by-the-book rulings, surveyed the assembled parties over her reading glasses. "Let me be clear," she began. "This is not a formal custody hearing, but a determination of appropriate temporary placement pending further investigation. Commissioner Blackwood has raised serious concerns about Dr. Wells's fostering arrangement." Harrison sat beside Robert at one table, while Reed and his attorney occupied another. Catherine sat slightly apart, her expression unreadable. Victoria Chen was present to represent the state's interests, while Commissioner Blackwood had positioned herself near Reed, a clear indication of her allegiance. Lily waited outside with Mrs. Abernathy to be called only if necessary. Reed's attorney presented first, displaying enlarged photos of Harrison's research notes alongside images captured from the museum. Gala, Lily's work on the same equations clearly visible. Dr. Wells has been using a vulnerable child's mathematical abilities to further his own professional interests, he argued. The Bull Carrington Prize, worth millions in research funding, represents a clear conflict of interest with his role as a foster parent. Judge Monroe turned to Harrison. Dr. Wells, how do you respond to these allegations? Harrison stood, maintaining his composure despite his anger. Your Honor, Lily Parker is a mathematical prodigy. Her engagement with complex equations isn't exploitation, it's nurturing her extraordinary gifts. Did you or did you not incorporate her work into your Carrington Prize submission? The judge pressed. Lily and I collaborated, Harrison acknowledged, at her initiative and with appropriate limitations on the time spent. Commissioner Blackwood interjected. A 10-year-old cannot legally consent to such a collaboration regardless of her abilities. This constitutes inappropriate labor at a minimum, Robert countered. Your Honor, by that logic, any gifted child pursuing their talents under adult guidance could be considered exploited. Lily's mathematical work is no different from a musical prodigy practicing with a professional musician. The debate continued, legal arguments flying back and forth, while the fundamental question, Lily's welfare, seemed increasingly obscured by professional rivalries and technical definitions. Finally, Judge Monroe raised her hand for silence. I'd like to hear from the child herself. When Lily entered, her small figure seemed dwarfed by the formal setting, yet she walked with remarkable poise to the chair indicated for her. Harrison noticed she carried her mother's letter in one hand. Hello, Lily, Judge Monroe said, kindly. I'd like to ask you some questions about living with Dr. Wells. You're not in any trouble and there are no wrong answers. I just want to understand your situation. Lily nodded. I understand, Your Honor. Do you enjoy working on mathematics with Dr. Wells? Yes. It's the best part of my day. Lily's voice grew stronger. I've always loved math. My mom encouraged it even when we didn't have much else. And does Dr. Wells make you work on his research, even when you might prefer doing other activities? Lily looked almost incredulous. No, one makes me do math. It's who I am. She gestured toward Lon Reed. That's what he doesn't understand. What none of you understand, except Dr. Wells. Judge Monroe leaned forward. What don't we understand, Lily? That some people are born with music in their heads, some with words or pictures. I was born with numbers. Lily's gaze swept the room. My mom used to say my brain was a gift I needed to use. Dr. Wells helps me use it. He doesn't exploit me. He respects me. The raw sincerity in her voice created a momentary silence, broken only when Malcolm Reed shifted impatiently. While this is all very touching, said, the fact remains that a child her age should be engaged in normal developmental activities, not advanced research with massive financial implications. Something in his dismissive tone sparked a change in Lily's demeanor. She straightened, turning to face Reed directly. I know who you are, she said quietly. Reed raised an eyebrow. We've never met, young lady. You knew my mother, Elena Parker. She worked in your lab from 2013 to 2016. The color drained from Reed's face as murmurs filled the room. Judge Monroe called for order. What is the relevance of this? She demanded. Lily held up her mother's letter. My mother left this for me before she died. She explains how Dr. Reed took credit for her research without acknowledgement, how he threatened her career when she protested. This is absurd, Reed sputtered. Elena Parker was a junior lab assistant, nothing more. We have evidence suggesting otherwise, Robert interjected, producing the USB drive Catherine had provided. Ms. Parker's original work forms the foundation of Dr. Reed's current research approach, the very research he's accusing Dr. Wells of compromising. As the judge examined this new evidence, Catherine Reed suddenly rose from her seat. There's more, Your Honor. Her voice cut through the tension. Elena Parker left Malcolm's lab abruptly in late 2014. 9 months later, she gave birth to Lily. The implication hung in the air for a breathless moment. before Reed's attorney jumped to his feet. "This is outrageous. These unsubstantiated claims have no bearing on—" "They have every bearing," Catherine interrupted, her composure remarkable despite the circumstances. "My husband has been pursuing custody of a child he doesn't realize is biologically his own." The room erupted in chaos. Judge Monroe banged her gavel, repeatedly, finally restoring order. "Is this true?" she demanded of Lily. The girl nodded solemnly. "According to my mother's letter, yes. Dr. Reed is my biological father." All eyes turned to Reed, whose shock appeared entirely genuine. "This is impossible," he whispered, staring at Lily as if seeing her for the first time, perhaps finally recognizing his own features mirrored in her face. "DNA testing can confirm it," Harrison offered quietly. Judge Monroe removed her glasses, visibly struggling to process this dramatic development. "This changes the nature of these proceedings significantly." She turned to Commissioner Blackwood. "Did you have any knowledge of this relationship?" "Absolutely not," the commissioner insisted, though her discomfort was evident. "Our concerns were solely about Dr. Wells's professional conduct, yet you accelerated these proceedings at Dr. Reed's request," Victoria Chin pointed out, "without the standard evaluations or home studies of the alternative placement he proposed. His own home." As the adults argued, Lily remained focused on Reed studying, the man who had unknowingly contributed to her existence. "Did you love her?" she asked suddenly, her small voice cutting through the legal debate. "My mother. Did you ever care about her at all?" The simple, devastating question silenced the room. Reed stared at Lily, confronted with a past he had deliberately buried and consequences he had never imagined. "Elena was—" began, then faltered. "It was complicated." "No," Lily replied, with surprising gentleness. "It wasn't complicated. You took what you wanted, her work, her trust, and you gave nothing back. That's actually very simple." The wisdom in her young voice struck Harrison anew. This remarkable child, who saw mathematical patterns with unprecedented clarity, could also see through human pretense with equal precision. Judge Monroe cleared her throat. "Given these extraordinary revelations, I am recessing these proceedings until paternity can be confirmed and all parties have an opportunity to reassess their positions." She fixed Reed with a stern look. "And I will be reviewing the evidence regarding Ms. Parker's intellectual contributions to your research, Dr. Reed." As they prepared to leave, Harrison placed a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "Are you all right?" She nodded, watching as Catherine approached her husband, their intense conversation inaudible but clearly heated. "What happens now?" Lily asked quietly. "I don't know," Harrison admitted. "But whatever comes next, we'll face it together." What he couldn't tell her was how the day's revelations had crystallized something in his own heart, that regardless of biological connections or legal declarations, Lily had become his daughter in every way that mattered, and he would fight with everything. He had to keep her where she belonged, home with him. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Harrison's penthouse on the morning of Lily's 11th birthday, illuminating a breakfast table where Mrs. Abernathy was, arranging pancakes in the shape of the number 11. 2 weeks had passed since the dramatic hearing. DNA testing had confirmed Malcolm Reed's paternity, setting in motion a complex legal process that remained unresolved. Judge Monroe had extended Harrison's foster placement pending a final determination, acknowledging the stability Lily currently enjoyed. "Happy birthday," Harrison said, placing a small wrapped package beside Lily's plate. The first of several. Lily smiled, the expression coming more easily now than when they'd first met in the snowstorm 4 months ago. "Thank you for everything, not just the presents." As she opened the gift, a vintage brass telescope that had once belonged to Harrison's grandfather, the doorbell rang. "That would be your surprise visitor," Mrs. Abernathy announced, bustling to answer it. Zoe from school entered carrying a gift bag and beaming. The girls had formed a genuine friendship over the past months, bonding over astronomy and a shared love of puzzle games. Harrison had arranged for Zoe to join them for the day's celebration. "I can't stay long," Zoe explained, handing over her gift. "My mom's waiting downstairs, but I wanted to give you this before your big presentation today." Lily unwrapped a friendship bracelet handmade with beads, arranged in a mathematical sequence. "It's perfect," she declared, immediately putting it on. After Zoe departed, Lily grew more serious. "Are you nervous about today?" Harrison considered the question. The Carrington Prize Committee had convened a special session to review their breakthrough. The quantum stability achievement had exceeded all expectations, creating stable quantum bits that maintain coherence 100 times longer than previous records, long enough for practical computing applications. "Not nervous," he decided, "but it feels different than I expected." "Because we're sharing the credit?" Lily asked. "Because the prize seems less important than it once did." Following the hearing revelations, Harrison had made a controversial decision. Their submission to the Carrington Committee openly acknowledged 3 contributors: himself, Lily Parker, and posthumously Elena Parker, whose theoretical framework had provided crucial insights. The choice had raised eyebrows in scientific circles, but Harrison was standing firm. Elena's work deserved recognition, and he refused to hide Lily's contributions under a misguided notion of protection. As they prepared to leave for the presentation, Harrison's phone rang. It was Catherine Reed. "Harrison?" Her voice sounded strained. "Malcolm wants to meet with Lily." Privately, Harrison tensed. Since the paternity confirmation, Reed had been uncharacteristically silent, making no further legal moves while presumably reassessing his strategy. "What does he want?" "To talk." "That's all he would say." Catherine hesitated. "I know I have no right to ask this, but I think it might help resolve things." Harrison covered the phone. "Reed wants to meet with you today." Lily considered this, her expression thoughtful. "Before or after the presentation?" "He's proposing before." She nodded decisively. "Tell him yes. I'm ready." An hour later, they arrived at the Carrington Foundation headquarters where the presentation would take place. Reed waited in a small conference room, looking less commanding than Harrison remembered, the revelations of recent weeks having clearly taken their toll. "I'll be right outside," Harrison assured, Lily reluctant to leave her alone, despite her insistence. "I know," she said with a confidence that continued to astonish him. "This is something I need to do myself." When the door closed, Lily took a seat across from Reed, studying the man who had unknowingly given her half her DNA. The resemblance was subtle but unmistakable, the same analytical gaze, the same tilt of the head when considering a problem. "Thank you for meeting with me," Reed began awkwardly. "I realize this is unconventional." "My whole life has been unconventional," Lily replied evenly. "What did you want to discuss?" Reed seemed taken aback by her directness. "I wanted to explain about your mother." "About what happened? Did you love her?" The same question she'd asked at the hearing, still seeking an honest answer. Reed sighed, the lines of age and regret suddenly visible in his face. "I admired her brilliance, her persistence. But love? No. I didn't allow myself that vulnerability." He met Lily's gaze. "I did her a great disservice, professionally and personally." "Yes, you did," Lily agreed, her tone matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. "But that's between you and her memory now. I'm more concerned about the present." "As am I." Reed leaned forward. "I've withdrawn my petition for custody." The announcement surprised her. "Why?" "Because I've realized my motivations were impure. Initially, it was to pressure Harrison. Then, after learning of our connection, it was perhaps to assuage my own guilt." He shook his head. "Neither of those reasons serves your best interests." Lily absorbed this. "And the Carrington Prize?" "I've withdrawn from that as well. Your mother's work deserves acknowledgement, and your contributions with Harrison represent the logical evolution of her theories." He managed a rueful Smile. The best ideas should win, regardless of who they belong to. A silence fell between them, filled with unasked questions and tentative possibilities. What happens now? Lily finally asked. Between us? Reed considered his words carefully. That depends largely on you. I have no right to demand a place in your life. But if you're willing, I would like the opportunity to get to know you on your terms. Lily thought of her mother's letter, the pain and betrayal it contained, but also the undeniable fact that without Malcolm Reed she wouldn't exist. She thought of Harrison, who had taken in a stranger and found a daughter who had put her welfare above his own ambitions when it mattered most. I think, she said, slowly, that there might be room for you to be a part of my life. Not as my guardian, but perhaps someday as family. She extended her hand, offering not forgiveness, exactly, but a possibility. We can start there and see what develops. Reed accepted her hand, visibly moved by her maturity and grace. You are extraordinary, Lily. Parker, your mother would be very, very proud of who you've become. When Harrison entered a few minutes later, he found them engaged in cautious conversation about Lily's mathematical approaches, the first tentative bridge between two brilliant minds with an unexpected connection. That afternoon, before the assembled Carrington committee, Harrison and Lily presented their breakthrough together. As Lily explained the elegant solution that had eluded the world's top researchers, her confidence and clarity drew murmurs of amazement from the audience. Theodore Carrington himself approached them afterward, his weathered face alight with excitement. Remarkable work, both of you. The prize is yours, obviously, but more importantly, you've opened a new door to the future of computing. As photographers captured the moment, Harrison noticed Catherine and Malcolm Reed standing at the back of the hall. Catherine gave a subtle nod of acknowledgement, while Malcolm's expression held a complex mixture of pride, regret, and resignation. Later that evening, as birthday celebrations concluded with cake and the promised stargazing session, with the new telescope, Harrison found Lily on the penthouse balcony gazing at the night sky. Good birthday? He asked, joining her at the railing. The best, she confirmed, though not exactly what I expected when you found me in that snowstorm. Harrison chuckled. Life rarely follows predicted patterns. That's what makes it interesting. Lily turned to him, her expression suddenly serious. Victoria Chen called while you were talking to Dr. Carrington. Judge Monroe has approved your petition for permanent guardianship. Harrison's heart swelled with an emotion he couldn't fully express. When did you... I heard you on the phone last week, discussing the petition with Robert. Lily smiled. You're not as stealthy as you think. I wanted it to be a surprise, in case he didn't finish the thought. In case it didn't work out. Lily shook her head. I never doubted it would. Some equations only have one possible solution. Harrison placed an arm around her shoulders. This extraordinary child who had transformed his life in ways he was only beginning to understand. Together they gazed at the stars, particularly bright on this clear April night. You know, Lily said thoughtfully, Mom used to say that mathematicians and astronomers see the same thing, patterns that reveal the underlying order of the universe. She was a very wise woman. She also said that sometimes the most beautiful patterns are the ones we create ourselves. Lily leaned against Harrison's side, like families, as a shooting star traced a brief, brilliant path across the Boston sky. Harrison Wells, mathematician, billionaire, and now, most importantly, father, silently thanked whatever cosmic algorithm had brought a homeless girl to his doorstep during a snowstorm and forever altered the equation of his heart. Years later, the patterns they created together continued to unfold in the most beautiful ways. Lily, now a promising young student at MIT, stood at a podium, her gaze sweeping across a packed auditorium as she accepted an award for her groundbreaking research. In the front row, Harrison watched, not as a billionaire or a mentor, but simply as a proud father. He no longer spent his nights wrestling with equations alone. He spent them at school plays, parent-teacher conferences, and on their penthouse balcony charting constellations with his daughter. Occasionally, a letter would arrive from San Francisco. Not from a rival, but from a man, tentatively learning to be a father, from afar, signed simply, Malcolm. Lily would read them, a quiet understanding passing between her and Harrison. Forgiveness, they had both learned, was its own complex equation, one best solved with time and grace. The universe, Harrison often thought, was not a cold, calculated system of numbers. It was a story. And the best part of his story was a little girl he found in a snowstorm who didn't just solve a $1 million equation, but solved him too. We hope this story warmed your heart and reminded you that the most valuable discoveries are often the ones we don't expect. If you enjoyed this journey, please show your support by liking this video. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story. Thank you for watching, and remember to look for the patterns of kindness in your own life.